Welcome back to the On Adventure podcast. I'm Josh Self, and I'll be your host. The conversation today was it was fun. I did not go into this interview expecting to have a group conversation, but when I contacted Adam Hill, he proposed the idea of interviewing multiple outdoor adventurers at the same time, and I said, sure, why not? Let's see what happens. So this is going to be a podcast of a little different flavor, but I think you're going to absolutely love hearing what these guys have to say. I was joined by Adam Hill, Shaun Pope, Ryan James, and Mark Looney. All these guys live up near Black Mountain, North Carolina, and spend long hours of their weeks pursuing outdoor adventure. It was a blast. I actually learned a lot, and I also learned that in these outdoor pursuits, especially with races, there are certain people that do them to try to win, and that's these guys. And then there's certain people that do them just to try to finish, and that's me. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Adam, Shaun, Ryan, and Mark. All right. We are at the On Adventure podcast in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm interviewing a group, and actually most of these guys say they've never been on a podcast before, so this will either be awesome or a complete train wreck, and we'll know in about an hour which way it goes. So I've got Adam, Shaun, Mark, and Ryan, and we're sitting in, what's the name of the running shop here? Mountain Running Company, award-winning from what I hear. Best of the Blue Ridge. Sweet. So, guys, as we were just talking about a second ago, this is a podcast where I really love talking to folks that are pushing their own limits. And so I'm really excited to hear the stories that you guys share with me about the things that you've done or are doing. But I also want to know why you do it. What is it that you get out of it? As what I realized that as animals that we are as humans, we only do things for rewards. And so what is the reward that you're getting out of sometimes suffering to extreme measures? Adam's shaking his head in big agreement with that. Yeah. So I'm going to throw out a question. You guys grab the mic, whoever wants to start, but I'm always interested where adventure starts. And so whoever grabs it, tell everybody who you are and what growing up was like for you to get to the point of wanting to do adventures in your life.
Yeah, I'll start off. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. I guess the adventures, if anyone that currently lives in Memphis, Tennessee, one of the unfortunate adventures is trying to avoid crime and robberies galore. Lots of unfortunate adventure there. I was not experienced in any sort of adventure other than just shenanigans with my fellow high school friends. But I didn't run. I didn't do anything to push the limits of adventure. It was the good old days, though, when your parents said, hey, go play outside, and if you come back before the street lights are on, we're going to kick your butt back out to have those types of adventures. So that was fun. But it never was something that was like ingrained in, like, I didn't have that ethos. I was just trying to get through every day and finish high school. I moved over to, it was a small private college outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Bryan College was the name of it, but surrounded by the pocket wilderness areas over there. It was in Dayton, Tennessee. But we went into Chattanooga a lot, but that really stuck with me. Like these beautiful mountain streams, trails, cliffs, like that you could scramble on. And yeah, I fell in love. First time backpacking with some friends from that college. Ended up going on to hike the AT, through hiked in 1997, which you had Brew Davis on. Jen, the hiker extraordinaire, always says, wow, you're so old. That was a really long time ago. So she likes to make fun of me for that. But anyway, yeah, that really birthed my love for adventure. It was the first, I was brand new to any of that, like hiking, backpacking, and just the experience. I was the kind of hiker that I didn't want to be in town. So I just wanted to be out on the trail. I just loved that vibe.
And all of that happened in college? Like you had no previous real legit experience in the outdoors until that point?
Absolutely, yeah. So first backpacking trip happened my freshman year of college. I think I did a couple of additional backpacking trips, one of which I met people that were like, yeah, we're hiking to Maine. And I was like the state, we were in North Carolina when I met those people. I had no idea that the AT existed.
That whole community.
So I had said in my mind, I want to do that.
And what year was that you started backpack?
That would have been 1995.
And you thru hiked
2 years later. Yeah.
Wow. That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah. And I had no idea what I was doing. So fresh, just obviously a pack that weighed way too much, and I southbounded. So I started out in the 100-mile wilderness and then realized real fast that I needed to shed some pack weight. Yeah, I was not a super lightweight, fast packer, long distance. I think I did a couple of 28 to 30 mile days, but mostly like in that 20-mile range. I mean, you have all day to hike, so it sounds far to some people, but it's not that far.
Yeah, I love the AT. And actually, an episode that'll be coming out, I interviewed a gal that guides with Jen's guiding company and has thru hiked. But we were just talking about all the great spots on the AT. So what was your, I don't want to say favorite, but which one sticks out maybe more than any other spots?
Wow. Grayson Highlands, for sure. I think most of the reason the Maine was awesome. The White Mountains are amazing. Franconia Ridge blew my mind. But like being in Grayson Highlands and feeling like I was getting closer to home was probably a bit why that stood out. So yeah, I loved every state. Every state had something beautiful. But that really opened my eyes. I learned who Dr. David Horton was when I was on the trail. So that was really the little into like knowing what the ultra running world was about. And I was kind of intrigued and met a guy that was on the trail. I finished the trail with a guy who was an ultra runner. So I think it was sort of like already starting to get baked in a little bit that I was going to gravitate towards that. I would not have known that at the time, but
that whole experience kind of sunk its teeth into you as far as being outside, pushing your limits, doing hard things in the woods, and it hadn't let go of you, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. The one thing that I think that when I got back, I wanted to see all these beautiful things but I didn't have time to take week-long or more backpacking trip. So I was like, I could go run 30 miles in a day and see all these cool things. And really after that, I ran my first road marathon, got stoked on that, and that got me more into running. Then I was like wanting to do trail running. At that time, like that was a while ago. That was 97, right? 98. It was like trail running, like Scott Jurek was coming up as a big name, like winning all these Western states. Yeah, I am. Well, here we'll pass it over to Mark in a minute. So yeah, but I wanted to run an ultra marathon, and that was sort of like the catalyst for that. Was then pushing those longer distances and just intrigued with that.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back to the ultra experience at some point, but anybody else want to jump in here about grown up years?
My name's Shaun Pope. I'm an avid trail runner. Really got into it closer towards the beginning of my college years. My parents, my uncle, they all ran. My uncle was the first one to do an ultra marathon, and then my father followed. So that kind of really aided me into getting into the sport and getting into trail running.
It's not often you hear a family affair in the ultra world.
Yeah, it was really cool. My uncle lives in Wisconsin, and he did a race called the Ice Age 50 Mile, and that was his first ultra marathon. So my father followed, did the race. My mother's always been a marathoner. So I had a lot of push to get into the sport. I hated running.
Did you really?
Yeah, I mean, I in high school I did all kinds of sports. I did baseball, football, soccer. Didn't really like the idea of running by itself. But when I got to college, I was well over 200 pounds, and I decided I wanted to lose a bunch of weight, so I started running and realized I really liked it, and actually liked it a lot more when I was in the woods. So that really helped. When I grew up, I was in Boy Scouts, and my mom would always take us out in the woods, and one of my favorite things to do was to catch amphibians and reptiles out in the woods. So the kind of combination of exercise and sport and then being out in the wilderness really kind of launched that to a passion and a love that I have today. I own a company called Mountain Running Company, which the whole basis of the company is based off of my passion and love for the sport and the adventure of it. So
yeah, for a kid that grew up not liking running, you really jumped into the deep end with running.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how many people say they don't like running, but they actually would find the love in running if they found their passion or their comfort zone spot in it, you know?
I totally agree with that.
Some people, you know, they just need a different aspect of it. It's really easy to say you hate running when your coach in football tells you to run around the field 6 times because you dropped the pass.
As punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I never dropped any passes.
But yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people would find a love for it. I know that it came a lot easier for me once I realized I could incorporate it into the woods and just every day kind of bring out the best of me by getting out there. And
did you spend a lot of time in the woods otherwise as a kid?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically the Boy Scouts was a big part of my life, and then I again, my parents were advocate about us going out into where I grew up in Ohio was close to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and so we would go into that national park on a regular basis 2-3 times a week. And just the love for animals and nature. I went to school in college. I actually graduated with a bachelor's in zoology. So I kind of really wanted to push the idea of being outside and being outdoors as my full-time job. So yeah, just to incorporate it all and have it kind of go that way has been really an awesome way to kind of enhance my ability to stay out there and keep adventuring.
Yeah. And at what point did you get into you do races as well, or
I compete. I compete sometimes now, but I competed a lot when I was in my later college years and later 20s and so forth.
Is it the competition that pushed you out into those things, or
I actually fell into that? And one of my 50Ks that I ran, I found myself at second. I ended up finishing second place, and I had no clue that I was in second place. So that kind of sparked me to wonder if I was actually good at it. I actually chose ultra running because I didn't have to stress about minutes per mile and stuff like that. So that always intrigued me. And then the other thing, it's a big eating contest. I love eating. So, that actually was an aftermath. I think I found the love of being out in the trails and exercising in a way that didn't feel like it was regimented and demanded. It's more of a natural enjoyment. So when the competition part started to come into play, it was almost another aspect that it gave it more enjoyment.
All right, who wants to? Adam's got something to add.
So if we had some artful videography going during this segment, we'd be spanning the shop of Mountain Running Company and looking at all Shaun's trophies all along.
There are a lot of them.
This guy's understated. He has set some course records and won a lot of cool. He's a great runner.
That's awesome.
Passing it over to Mark.
This is Mark. I'm not going to give you my age. By the dates that I drop, you'll figure it out. Yeah. So I think I got the bug for it probably in the high school ages, as Adam was talking about. I lived in the Rochester, Buffalo, New York area for my high school years, and every time there was a blizzard, the big thing was to go out and play in the snow. As Adam had mentioned, your parents would basically just say, go out and play for the rest of the day type of thing. And so for us, that was involving snow half the year, mostly. And so, back in 77, there was the blizzard of 77 where the snow drifts were literally as high as the roofs on the house. And so the kids would go up on the roofs, do backflips and all kinds of crazy stuff and snowboard off the roofs and stuff like that. So that was adventure in your backyard type of thing. That ended up leading towards this love for the outdoors. I got into Boy Scouts as Shaun did and spent a lot of time with our troop, and almost once a month we were camping and going to some really cool places upstate New York and doing longer backpack trips, 50-milers, that type of thing.
Do you guys think, and neither of you can answer this, but did that experience with the Boy Scouts give you kind of the grounding that you can hold your own in the wilderness? Just a quick interruption here to say that if you're enjoying these conversations, jump over to my website, www.ridgelinewealthadvisors.com, and that's advisors with an ORS, and there you can sign up for my monthly newsletter, The Money Trail Guide. You'll find more information in line with how you can pursue your great adventure now and all the things that go into planning and funding something like that. With that, let's jump back into the conversation.
Yeah, it gives you some self-confidence. I was going to mention one of my favorite merit badges was called Wilderness Survival. And basically what they did was they did some developmental training. You know, you had to answer a bunch of questions and they taught you some wilderness survival skills. But then the test was a 24-hour isolation period, and they basically it was like, what was that book, Lord of the Flies? It was just like Lord of the Flies. They put us on an island, we canoed out there, they dropped us off, they gave us one match and a jackknife.
And whoever survives wins.
Well, you had to get off the island. It was basically the name of the game, but it was fun, and you saw more kids trying to, stab a frog or something just for, to claim rights that you got a frog leg for dinner or something like that. And it was just very exciting and thrilling. And that became the hook, I think, that got me into this thing about survival and hunger in the field, if you will, and being able to pacify that hunger and that security, so to speak, I think became what then evolved into many other adventures that I've been on. So,
and you're telling me you've done cycle touring on the bicycle. Have you also done ultramarathons as well?
No, I'm not an ultramarathoner. I've done marathons.
But you are a runner.
Yeah, I've done 26 marathons.
That's a lot.
And it's a lot. And I was not quite like Shaun, where I was focused on the time and the pace per minute and all that kind of stuff. So that was, when I was a runner, that was my focus. When I was a cyclist, it was more of an adventure type of thing. In high school as a wrestler, and I had to lose weight, so it was always 20 pounds I had to lose, and off of a 130 pound frame, losing 20 pounds puts you.
That's difficult.
That's hunger.
Yeah.
And so that became the point where I started running, because I had to run to lose the 20 pounds to make the team and all that kind of stuff. So food has a lot to do with the desire to be outside and to survive on your own and be able to find your own food and whatnot. So all of that running supported my next adventure, which was to bike across the country. I had read an article. There was a group from Ohio that started what's now called the Bike Centennial, which in '76 was the first Bike Centennial, and a group of kids from Ohio rode across the country. I read that article, and 3 years later, I found myself on a bike with sneakers, no less. I didn't know anything about cycle touring other than I had good camping skills. So
we are kindred spirits.
Yeah, so and it was funny because I ended up meeting some cyclists, and they're like, "You're wearing sneakers and you're biking across country?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They say, "Your feet don't hurt?" And I'm like, "No." It's like,
oh my gosh.
They said, "No brains, no pain" was the mantra back then. And so I flew out with a friend to San Francisco and just tore up the coast of California. And then in Oregon, I went east. And then 145 days later, I ended up in Connecticut. And so that became really the keystone that really got me into this thing called adventure cycling.
Wow.
And
you still do that now?
Yeah, I do. I've just finished up a series of bike rides going around each of the Great Lakes. And so I've got a series of books that are going to come out pretty soon on those as well.
So do you know what the name of the books are, just in case anybody's interested?
Yeah, called Lap the Lake.
Lap the Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a 5-part book series. Lap
That's
the Lake
great.
Erie, Lap the Lake Ontario.
Harry Potter.
The Harry Potter of lake lapping.
Make more money selling smaller books.
Yeah. That's really
epic
cool.
Novel.
The guest that I had on a couple weeks ago, his name is Rick Steves, not the one that does all the travel
Yeah,
books.
I do know Rick's.
But same name, and he had a similar experience when he got into bicycle touring, where he literally left college, he went to Duke University, left college, flew to Europe with nothing, not even a bike, and bought a bike while he was there, and was like, I guess I'll figure it out. He had the, what are they called, panniers, the bags that go.
4 set of bags.
He had those,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the bike to put them on.
Right.
And he just figured it out. It was part of his experience to wing it as he went.
And the Europeans are by far greater cyclists, touring cyclists. There's the Alps and many other areas, and their biking trails are epic out there. So it's no wonder that people go out.
Have you done anything?
I have not.
After being in Europe and then cycling in the U.S., he said he was not treated very kindly by vehicles, but in Europe, it's kind of part of the culture. So has that been your experience, or did you have any issues with?
No, I didn't have too many issues. After 2 weeks of trying to hit 100 miles a day, because again, I didn't know.
That is a long time on the saddle.
It's a long time. And so I was really getting pissed at myself because I didn't know what the right amount of distance to do each day. So I said, okay, 100 miles looks like a good thing, but when you're in the Palisade Mountains in California, you're doing all this, and then you're in and out of the coastline. It was pretty traumatic. So I actually tried to hitchhike after 2 weeks, and nobody picked me up. It's pouring rain, and I'm out in Wyoming, and I'm like this, and cars are going by. Nobody's giving me. So I said, well, may as well just keep biking. So kept biking, and next day turned out to be a sunny day, and just kept going. So
that's pretty cool.
There's a lot of things to fate and your choices and all that we could talk about.
Yeah, I hear that a lot as I talk to these different people that do. Adventure means something different to everybody, and it looks different for everybody. But there's a lot of that serendipity that happens. They're just open to whatever the next thing is. And like, sure, I'll try that. Instead of being rigid and closed and like, that's not my thing. That's kind of where the magic happens is when we're open to it. So that's cool to hear the same thing with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the adventure wasn't so much just the scenery. It was also the people that you meet and the circumstances that you find yourself in, riding on the tailgate of a pickup truck going up to some mountaintop or something like that, and hitchhiking your way back down, and all those little side adventures make up as much of the story as anything else. So.
Well, Ryan, tell us a little bit about you.
All right. I'm Ryan James. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, which is flat as a pancake. I had kind of a similar experience with Adam growing up, just stayed out. When the sun came up, you went out of the house, and when the sun came down, came back in. And I just kind of grew up in the woods as a kid, and I didn't really appreciate that until I got much older.
Now, the woods in the low country look a little bit different than they do here.
Right, yeah. I mean, we rode our bikes through on like single track trails through the woods, and we didn't know mountain biking was a thing or anything like that back then. But I'm trying to remember, I did like one backpacking trip in college, but like I really didn't get really into adventuring until like later in life. I started running, and I got into ultra running and did a lot of races, but I don't think like really adventure really like hit home until a buddy of mine, so I was living in Birmingham, Alabama, and we were like, hey, let's go on a running trip. Let's go see what we can do like over a couple of days. And so we were dumb, and we decided to go for the Smoky Challenge adventure run as our first like travel run. Neither one of, well, he had done 100. I had never ran anything that far before, nor had I ever ran in the Smokies ever in my life.
And how far is this?
I think it's like 71 miles ish. There's an ish on all of those.
All of the races have ishes.
Yeah. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing. We were like, we know that we start here and we end here, and we just take the AT. That was pretty much like what we knew. And we had our crew meeting us at the 40-mile point, and it was just like one of those like, holy crap, I can't believe we are in this. Like, and the last 30 miles, we didn't say anything to each other. And afterwards, we talk about the story a lot, and we were like, if you would have said quit, I would have turned around in a heartbeat. We were like waiting for each other to like say mercy, and neither one of us did. We ended up doing the whole thing. And it rained on us nonstop. It was just like one of those just like type A kind of things. But like that was the first time I was like, man, like we totally just like went on a trail, had no idea what kind of climbs we were going to be in for, or like what kind of trail we were going to be, and ended up coming out the other end like with like, everything in peace. And
that's cool.
So,
it's all on the AT?
Yep. Yeah.
From where to where?
So it starts. You start at Font. Well, you pick which one you want to. Tana. Yeah, we started Fontana and went to Davenport Gap. So
Oh, wow.
I think it's something around like 18,000 feet of climbing or something like that. I think is what most people.
That's legit.
Yeah, so it's a fun one.
So this is a thing that pops into my head is when you guys are out in these really, really remote areas and you get that head trash that's saying, enough is enough. Is there ever a point where you're so far out that it's actually quicker to just keep going than to stop and figure out a way to, does that question make sense?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
After 2 weeks, I had enough, and I had put my thumb out, and that I was basically giving up the ghost and saying that was enough.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I never got picked up by anybody that was going to throw my bike in the back of the pickup truck, and so I just had to keep going.
I would have picked you up, Mark. So sometimes that is actually what keeps you going, is like actually just get over this ridge, just get to this aid station, just get to this checkpoint. And so now it's farther for me to go back, so I have to keep going. Like those are the little mental mind games that you play.
Yeah, I remember that run when we crossed, because we knew we had 30 miles left. And once we crossed the 15, we were like, all right, now it's going to be shorter to finish this thing out rather than turning around.
Well, so that kind of gets to another thing I'm always curious about is, especially with ultras, I think you guys are probably all in good enough shape that you could go out and run just about any distance you wanted to, but at some point it's the mental games that you've got to overcome. So if any of you could take a stab at this, what do you do when that happens, when you get into that space between your ears? How do you overcome that and keep pushing on?
Yeah, I've kind of dealt with that, I think, a lot. I've had like good outcomes and bad outcomes from that. So I remember the Foothills Trail, which is kind of like the border of South Carolina, North Carolina, and that's another like long one. It's like 74 miles. And I remember, so I met my wife and my kids. They were crewing me. I think I got aid maybe like 25 miles in or something like that. So I knew I had another 50-mile stretch, and then I ended up in the nighttime, like I had no phone service, and I was like, kind of had a little freak out moment, and then I was like, I just gotta like stay calm and like push through this because I will get cell service. So I've had like those like moments of like that, and I've also had like full blown like this is not, I'm in a bad situation and I need to go ahead and bail. And that's a point of like, you really just have to know yourself of like, do I have what it takes to actually like keep going, or
were
like,
you injured, or what was going on?
The most recent one was was like 2 weeks ago. I had a bad idea to do the 100-mile Ben McKay Trail through the Smokies. So I made it all the way. I was pretty close to Bryson City, and I was just exhausted, and I was like, I can't make it through the night. Like I was like, I could push through this, but it's going to be one of those, like, I don't really want to, like, I'll look back at this as like, this was a terrible idea kind of thing. So I ended up bailing, still put in a lot of miles in that day. And then when we went to go pick up my truck the next day, all the Smokies were just like white capped. And I was like, I would have gone through, like, not only like feeling like crap, but I would have gone through a snowstorm at the same time. And I was like, so it's like, you really don't know like what a good decision is until like after the fact, which is a really hard thing. Like you just have to have lots of, in my opinion, experience to really like
To know yourself well
enough to like do it. I don't know, like not really good. There's no like rule book for it.
Do you have an example of when you chose wrong?
Well, I did go through the Smokies through a snowstorm. Nothing bad happened. It was just like one of those. I did Scargan over in March one year, and my rain gear, it got so cold that my rain gear had turned to ice. And I remember stepping over a tree and like my rain pants split in half because they were frozen. It was ice cracking, and that's what caused them to rip open. But no, I've like yet to get into like a situation where I was like, oh, I got attacked by a bear, or like I had to call like for a helicopter. You know, like there's never been that, because I've always been like sensible enough to carry enough food, to carry like emergency gear, things like that. That I'm like, well, if I do get something really bad, I can still hike out of here. And that's the good thing about this area, even though it does often offer a lot of remote areas, you really can get to a road pretty easily. 10, 20 miles to me is like, well, you could hike that out. Yeah. Like anybody, if they really wanted to, could hike that 10 or 20 miles out, unless if they didn't have a broken leg or anything.
How do you get over that hurdle?
I'll say my experiences with that depletion of energy and will probably comes most characteristic in the marathon. So having done 26 of them, there's that period of time where you call it the wall. It's after the first 20 miles, you've been running at aerobic threshold pace, and you're basically out of any fuel. And there's that 5-minute window. Some can blast through it, and most of the time, most are going to go through it. And it's sheer will and determination that gets you through it. You start losing functionality when you hit the wall. I mean, first it starts with the brain. You get into this brain fog type of mode. Then you start feeling numb on your toes and your fingertips. You're losing blood circulation in that area. And you just gradually feel yourself getting into this deeper and deeper fog where your eyesight's not clear, your hearing is unclear. And I think there's a couple of different strategies. There's one called association, where you associate with the pain, you feel your breathing, you feel where your muscle aches are. The other one is disassociation, where you try to transport yourself to anywhere that's not pain, like that tree over there that you just ran by. I'm going to throw all my pain at that tree, and I'm not feeling anything. So,
which one works for you?
I'm definitely an associator. I want to know where every tweak and piece of pain is and dissect it with analytics, and so that's how I get through it. Today, we have a lot of nutrition and stuff like that helps people get through. I mean, the chemistry is phenomenal over the past 20, 30 years. I mean, in the marathon back in the 80s, they gave you D-Fizz Coke as your little Dixie cup of D-Fizz Coke was all you got. None of that. And water, that was it. Maybe even Gatorade. But today, there's a lot more product out there that's nutrition, and so that does help you snap out of it. Caffeine does help, and so that's my experience in that feeling of
for you, does
helplessness.
It hit at the exact same time every race?
It depends on how in shape you are, is what I found, and I've practiced over and over different training techniques that have ultimately got me to the point where I can almost feel it just flushing by me, and for like a minute or two, it's like, whew, I just hit the wall, and then I'm out of it, and I'm back to the race pace and focused again. Cool. So it's a really interesting period, and I'm sure there's scientific studies on it, but you try to avoid it, but sure enough, most marathoners are going to hit it.
And so for you, it's associating with that, and almost as a welcome expected guest to the party, and that allows you to push your way through it.
And then once you're out of it, then you know you're not home free, but you got another 6 miles to go or so, but it's a little different game at that point.
Shaun, what about for you?
So I've done maybe, I think, about 60 ultramarathons in my life so far, and I've dropped out of probably well north of 10, 15 of them. And I could say about 99% of those have been dropouts due to pride. So something where I'm not proud of myself and the way I'm competing, or I'm doing is in general, or just upset about how the way is going. And to me, I think almost every single one of those has been a bad example of why you go out there to do that. You know, you really, I feel a lot of times that mentally you should be able to get over a lot of things like that to get to the finish line. I have dropped out one time, I think, completely. Out of every time I have dropped out, I dropped out once due to being physically unable to being able to finish the race. I split my shin open at Western States 100.
Did you really?
I did. I was in
How far into the race?
6 miles.
6?
Yeah, 6 miles. And then I ran all the way to the 50K mark with my shin split open.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of the most prestigious races in the US.
Absolutely. Hard to get into.
I won a golden ticket, which is second time. Yeah, I've won 2 golden tickets and raced in Western States twice.
Explain what a golden ticket is.
A golden ticket is a race associated with Western States that the top 2 spots for both men and women get a ticket, guaranteed entry into Western States.
It's not Willy Wonka.
Yeah, very few people get those tickets.
Yes. So that I think that was a pretty hard decision. I had seen my dad an aid station prior to when I did DNF, and he is a pediatrician. I said, "Dad, I'm not quitting." he said, Shaun, that's going to get infected. And I said, Dad, I'm not quitting. And he said, okay, go. And then I had 6 miles to think about it after my dad told me that, and I ended up taking a DNF at mile 32 mark of the race. I don't know if I would have quit if I hadn't ran the race before, but I honestly, like, on training runs, on a lot of that stuff, it's such a mental fortitude. You know, when you go through like what Mark was talking about, there's a lot of things that physically affect your mental decisions. Bonking is huge. You know, you can go from high in the world and then you can bonk and you can just be pity party. But if you do that enough times in your life, you realize it's only like a state of mind for a certain amount of time. So I think, you know, when it's come to the times where I've like pulled myself out of a goal that I had set for myself, a lot of times I think that I entered that zone and decided to quit before I could have gotten out of that zone.
How long is it a similar time that bonking zone happens for you?
I mean, a lot of times it's based off of how you treat yourself during your experience. You know, it's all about eating, drinking, doing the proper things. You know, with ultramarathons and mountain running, it's bringing the right stuff. You know, if you're out in the mountains and you're getting stuck in the Smokies and it's snow, did you bring your jacket, gloves, hats, you know, all that kind of stuff? Which kind of brings me back to the point of like when I have dropped out of a goal that I've set for myself, it's always rewarding for the first 15, 20 minutes, hour, half day. I've never woken up the next day and been happy about it. So like I said, the only experience I've ever had where I've legitimately thought, okay, you did the right thing is when I've split my shin open in that moment.
Was that on a fall? Is that how
I fell. I hit a water trail, had a bunch of water, slick, and I just took off. I slipped on a rock, split my shin open. First aid station in Western States is about 10 miles, and I didn't look down. I actually thought I had broken my shin at first, but as I kept running, I was like, well, if I'm running, I didn't break my shin. But yeah,
that's hardcore.
The first time I saw it was at mile 10 when I looked down and got sat down, and I could tell by the person who was working the aid station, the medical person, I know that she knew that it was a pretty bad split because her face I could tell that
you didn't even need to look at it. You just had to read her face.
No, and actually the bandage that they put on me, it kept falling down. So I got to the aid station, actually the first aid station that you see your crew where my parents were, it was about mile 26. And I pulled in, and the entire aid station, I mean, they had, you know, it was the first aid station that you could have crew. So there's a lot of people there. My Band-Aid was off, and they went from cheering to silence. And it was, So, but I think that's at that point, like, you know, when your life's on the line or something, like you could lose a limb, and like Ryan was saying, where you're entering in a pain cave of danger where you could, you know, that there's legitimate points, and then there's that point where you're just having a pity party for yourself. A lot of times, I think with the ventures, it's being able to identify that.
I think that's a key point. I think that winning at the adventure game, we'll call it, requires critical thinking, and good adventurers know when it's not an adventure anymore, and it's actually a dangerous activity that you're participating in. You talk about the people that summit Everest as an example, and you know their goal was to get to the top of Everest, and anything less than that is not an adventure. And so I think being able to set a set of goals for every event that we enter is probably, you know, whether Shaun knows it or not, his goal was to finish Western States. That was, you know, by and large, the number one thing that was going to happen that day, with the exception of the fact that, you know, he split his shin open and he wouldn't be able to finish it. But in every other adventure that we get into, there's finishing the event, there's a whole set of sub goals that we set for ourselves, and those are probably pride driven. But they're also very important for the motivation to push through some of the pain and stuff like that, you know, Shaun's talking about running 26 miles with a potential 10-scar recovery. I think adventurers know how to push pain into the back recesses of their mind and be able to endure great physical duress while doing that activity. And so I think that's a key thing that you have with this group in particular, is that ability to compartmentalize pain and put it off in a corner somewhere where it'll be addressed later on, in the hospital or whatever. I had an unfortunate experience in college. I ran a cross-country race. It was a 5-mile race or something. And stupid as I was back then was we would go drinking Friday nights before the race. Well, it turns out to be a 91-degree race the next day. And I ran the entire race. It was 4.5 miles, except for the finishing chute. I ended up blanking out. I did not make it to the finish chute. I just did a face plant and slid into the chute and woke up in the hospital with IVs and all this stuff. And what it says is that your mind has the ability to compartmentalize the pain of dehydration to the point where you pass out. And so, you do a Superman into the ground, and it's a traumatic experience when you wake up and you're like, what the heck happened here? Yeah. And so that's an example of not being a good adventurer. And so I think you have to be smart when you're playing these games, because they are life threatening.
You won't have any more adventures if you ruin one.
If you mess it up, yeah. And Ryan mentioned it, that would imagine that the more someone does a thing, the more that filter in your head gets better. Yeah. Because there's an element where your body's sending signals to your brain and it says, this is really dangerous, you got to stop. And that's not true. It just hurts, right? And so there's a part of your brain that is going to override that, but there's a different section that is kind of the danger alarm. And I would imagine all of you guys have honed that with the more times that you've pressed yourself. Adam, what do you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with few exceptions, I mean, Ryan's adventure in the Smokies, that's biting off a lot, especially considering there's very limited bailouts for that. I mean, there's so many adventures that, I mean, even there is the pre-planning stages, but when you're in the thick of it, like it's what's the saying? It's like prepare for the worst, hope for the best sort of thing. So like we're all from that sort of school of thought. And so like if you take that into your adventure, I get caught up in like maybe some interesting situations because I don't like to carry a whole lot. I go pretty minimal. So yeah, but I'm always like, part of that prepare for the worst is like, okay, if I have to, I know where the springs are. I know the landscape. I know where side trails go. I can get myself out of here. So, and I don't usually carry, I still have a, ladies Timex Ironman watch. I don't have the GPS. I don't take my phone usually when I'm out and about. So I'm really self-reliant out there. I mean, I still let people know where I'm going.
What is it, the minimalism to that? Why do you do that?
A little bit of that is, I think there's some efficiency. I've always been fascinated with just moving light and efficient, like through the landscape. And so there is a little bit of efficiency element. I mean, I'm a light framed guide. I don't like carrying heavy packs, or like, I also like my amenities. Like, I like to feel comfortable. So I'm just like, how can I feel most comfortable while I'm about to experience a lot of discomfort? Because I don't want to be thinking about those things like the chafing of a pack, or like, I just want to, a little bottle I can hold, and then, carry a banana, or like, like pick some little things to eat on the trail, do some wild edibles. Or like there was the guy that he was like, oh, Adam just eats 4 blueberries while he's out. That season's coming up. It's going to be nice.
So when you get into the pain threshold, and as we've been talking about, your body's wanting to stop, how far into races, or do you do races, or do you?
Different from these guys, probably more Mark and Shaun, because Ryan's doing just crazy self-adventure stuff out there that we may not have time to get into all the stuff that Ryan's done. But so different from the more competitive race element of it, which I admire and I have my own taste of it, but I like to self-compete. Like if I am out, a guy that was supposed to be here, David Galloway, he's part of our group. He likes to joke that like we go on little runs in our backyard and then we come back and like, oh, let me pull out my notebook pad that I have all the splits from this run that I've done multiple times. Like I just like, I don't dislike competition, but I'm more of
it's more with yourself.
Absolutely. So,
So what are the distances that you do where it becomes so hard that your mind's telling you got to stop this?
I haven't done anything crazy like multi-day other than like backpacking, but I haven't done like the 200-mile adventures. I think I only have 100-miler under my belt, but it was just an excursion. Pitchell's long enough. That's, well, Brew was on talking about Pitchell, but I mean, yeah, that's an annual pilgrimage, and that's sort of part of the fun. It's a pilgrimage, but I'm fascinated. Like Mark's talking about association and dissociation, and I'm like thinking, oh, maybe I should try that. Maybe, that sounds really cool. Usually when it hurts, I just go home. I'm like, I just want. So like I have this like interesting element where I don't know if I don't think it's that I like pain. I have fun in the mountains. I just love being out there. And so maybe that is some dissociation. Like I'm like, oh, well, this hurts, but hey, I'm out here. There's a tree. I'm not like trying to make that tree take my pain like Mark was suggesting. I don't know what that's about. No, I think that like I just, that's how I've learned the flora and fauna of this area. And then I go run with Shaun, who's like also a birder. He's telling me what birds are chirping. So I just get caught up in the cool elements of my surroundings. And if I'm just not having fun anymore, I don't want to be out. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, pain or no pain, I want to have fun. And so when the fact that I get to experience some of these adventures with all these amazing people, like Ryan, Mark, and Shaun included, of course, and we had a few other people that were going to be here, which was part of the cool part. This is why I do the adventure, just the people I meet that I get to share it with. And even when I'm out there solo, which I do enjoy a lot of solo adventures, they're with me. Like I'm carrying all of that. Like I'm experiencing, I'm like, oh, I remember. So you just kind of go to that place in your mind, whether it's adventure runs with these guys, a backpacking trip with my son. Like that's where I go. That's
really cool. You guys are continue to bring the people part of the experience up, because that is a common thread with everybody that I talk to, whether it's, 20-something gal that's backpacking through Eastern Europe, or somebody riding a bike, or somebody I've got a buddy that he actually won Ultraman, which is a double Ironman triathlon in Florida. And every single person, it's not necessarily the competition. It's not even the competition with themselves. It's the people that they get to be around and that they get to experience it with. And I think that's fascinating.
I can tell you from the bike ride back in the early 80s, I've got some best friends that I still are lifelong friends that were a 5-minute connection. Hey, what direction did you take on this route here? And we exchanged some maps and stuff like that. That became phone number exchange, and then we were talking, and one of the guys actually showed up at my wedding and stuff like that. So you become lifelong friends with people that experience the same hardships that you're experiencing. And I think that's where that common thread is that you're digging at.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, guys, we're almost pushing an hour already. I could sit here all night and talk to you guys, and I'm not going to do that, I promise. But I do want to get to, and maybe we've finished on this, but you've talked about what you do and how you get through it. But talk to me a little bit about why you put yourself through this suffering over and over again. It's got to be more than just being in good shape. And really, I think it's got to be more than just having a cool story. So if you guys could kind of talk to that, what is it that is your reward for getting through these things?
I guess I'm starting. I think about that a lot. I think being a mountain athlete, you go through like existential crisis on like a weekly basis of like, like, what the hell am I out here for? No one gives a flipping crap that I'm going to like put this on like Strava or Instagram or whatever. Like, I mean, we have our few group of people, our community that's like rooting for us every time we're out there. But at the end of the day, like nobody really cares what we're doing. Like, I mean, we all have like finisher awards and buckles and trophies that we're like, yeah, like these are just pieces of like material, like that are like cherished moments. But like none of that to me like matters. It's like I always look back, like I have these like memories of like certain points of things, and like that's really what I cherish. But like I think like the why to like go out there is to really, for me, is like to like, one, like Adam said, to have fun in the mountains. Like I am the happiest. I'm happy as a lark when I'm in the mountains. Like I am when I haven't ran a 100-mile race in a few years, but like when I do run races, I am the most annoying person in the aid station because I come frolicking in, and then I'm like happier than the aid station volunteers, and the other people around me are like, this is the worst race in the world. I'm like, it's amazing. They're like, well, we're about to climb another mountain. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Like, but like I think like the like motivation to sign up for things or like to make the decision is like really just to see what can I do. Like the feeling of like towing a line or like starting an adventure to me is like if I don't know what's going to happen at the beginning of it, to me, that's the motivation for like starting it, which yeah, it blows up in your face sometimes. But like, that's like I get asked like, why don't you do shorter things that only take, like maybe half the day instead of like a couple days or like maybe even keep it like under 12 hours. Like, it's like, I know I'll be fine doing that. I want to see like, what can I do? Like, and what can and that's like really like, I think that motivator of like the beginning of it.
What have you learned about yourself?
That I really like to sleep in a bed instead of running through the middle of the night. I've run through the middle of the night a lot, but yeah, I really enjoy like a tent or a bed. I think is what I've learned about myself.
As I've gotten older, again, the age thing comes in. My races have shortened. I'm doing 5Ks, and I think there's an excitement on my part to understand what it takes to do the shorter distance races. It's kind of an exploration of inner self and what works and what doesn't. I come from an engineering background in school, and so everything that I do is a plus or a minus to whatever the event is that I'm trying to get. So it's a very analytical type of thing. I wish I could say that I would love to go run in the mountains for days and weeks on end, but I don't find enjoyment in that, namely because I'm very time bounded, and I got to get my workout in, and it's almost like a business clock type of thing. I get my workout in, and then I'm on to 10 other things. So it's more self-discovery in the older years rather than external discovery, I think, that we search for. And there's certainly the self-confidence factor, and I'll call it the endorphin rush of completing a goal or placing in a race and all that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of a thrill to that still.
So for all of the me search that you've been doing, tinkering with the analytics, what have you learned about yourself?
As I age, I'm limited by what I used to think I could do. So I have to resort back to what good really means at different age groups. So, your quarter times or what you're eating or how much sleep you're getting, what kind of weightlifting program are you doing? All those little bits and pieces that make a good structured event and personal performance add up, and it's very interesting and intriguing. There's research papers on all that kind of stuff, and so I'm just trying to find out where I fit in that scale of measurement.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Shaun, what about you?
I think going back to that statement about being up in the mountains and being at your happiest point, I will say I gain weight really fast. Like, I love food. I love beer.
You have mentioned that a couple
I love
times.
Cheese. I am a glutton. And being in shape is one of my favorite things about, it's when I'm at my best. So, that has a part to it, but at the end of the day, it really is about being up in the mountains. My wife and I, we went on our honeymoon to Italy. I'd never been out of the country. I've ran in Colorado. I've done some mountaineering, plenty of stuff out in the West and stuff, but I almost forgot, I haven't, but I did, experience when I went out to Italy. We hit the Alps, and the first time we got to 12,000 feet, I was hollering and shouting. And I mean, yeah, I haven't done cocaine very often in my life, but it's like, it's honestly, I mean, I can't tell you the change in my demeanor when I'm at 12,000 feet and wide open out range and being.
Now, are you saying you were delirious or you were
like
so
I
happy?
was stoked.
Yes,
like, absolutely in cloud nine. My poor wife, she was going through some stuff and she just was miserable, and I couldn't help but be happier.
Wondering who is this guy that she just married?
Yeah, no, she knows very well. She was plenty stoked to be there with me, but yeah, I mean it's one of those things that I mean being up in the mountains and being
you come alive.
And it's not even in the mountains. Like I remember hitting some. There's a section on the Buckeye Trail, which is in Upper Kyle Valley National Park in Ohio. And it was a section that I hit where it's just power lines. So you're in dense wood and then you open up into this big wide open range and you're maybe 400 feet higher than the road down below. And I remember screaming at the top of my lungs, just because I was so happy. So yeah, I'm on that page. Again, it's really great being in shape and being able to eat all the food I want and not having to worry about it. But yeah, the aspect of getting out in the mountains and really finding the joy of that's what brings me back every single time.
I'll ask you the same question also. What have you learned about yourself as you've hit these different thresholds and done harder and harder things?
Yeah, so I think at my age now, the thing I really take to value is that I value the enjoyment of it. We talked about competing and the points of that, and where you're almost taking something that you enjoy and you're making it a chore, a habit. When I was younger, I would say, what's the point of running 6 miles when I need to go, if I should do 14 to get, better shape, and as I've gotten older, I've realized that I'd rather go out and enjoy what I love doing rather than to shove it away and say, okay, well, if I'm not going to do X amount of miles or X amount as fast, what's the point? I'm starting to realize the point. The whole point is getting out there and enjoying it. And every time I get on top of a mountain, I'm shouting at the top of my lungs, I'm succeeding in some sort of way. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So the experience is the reward in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, if you're putting it into a point where you're making it something that you have to work harder at rather than enjoying, you might. It's good if you can do both, but the main point is why if you're up there, you should be happy about doing it rather than it being a forced kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I'm sure you see in some of the big time races that you're at, a lot of people that tilt towards the side of not the enjoyment, but it's now something they have to do. And
it's what Adam was bringing into the aspect of, where I was saying, I drop out of races and then I'm mad at myself. But the whole point of being out there is to enjoy it. So, I'm dropping out because I'm not having fun. But if I looked in at a different aspect of saying, okay, you're out in the middle of the woods, you're doing everything that you're loving, this is where life's at. You just got to find that internally. I think that's a big part of it.
I like that. Very good. All right, Adam, what do you think?
What was the question again? No, I'm loving this because I like the reasons I go out there, like they've changed over the course of time, and I love the challenge of point A to point B. I'm a fan of the leave your front door, travel to like that's sort of what I mean. Maybe that's the backpacker sentiment in me. I just led a backpacking trip with the students I work with at my school. And we did instead of this loop or like whatever we were going to try to do, we did this like destination hike. So it's like there is that element of that's what draws me to some of these adventures. It's what I love about spending time in the woods. It's what I love with mountain running company. We've got the group runs, but I also lead a track workout. It's so fascinating to me. And I'm a runner at heart now, like that. There's no question about it. Came from the backpacking world, but I'm a runner. It's what I'm passionate about and love following the sport of it. Love what Shaun's doing here. Mark works at the shop some too. I love what the shop is doing for the community of runners. But we lead this track workout, and it's so amazing for me to watch when we all show up at the track. It sucks. Like, it's like a 400-meter oval. You don't go anywhere. You're not in the mountains. We're looking at a beautiful mountain range. Like, we have shout out to Jason Lukowitz and Garrett, like, who they're the assistant athletic director at Montreat College. It's a Montreat College track. It's a beautiful track. You might as well be in Boulder, Colorado or something. Wow. It's just gorgeous over there. So you're looking at the mountains, and all of us are like, oh, we want to be in the mountains, but we're running around this dumb oval. But like we just care about strengthen the camaraderie. We're testing limits. Like, we're out there to say, do we still have it? What do we still have? Can we dip into the pain cave just a little bit? And yeah, it's just like, that's part of the journey of it is, can we keep that dream alive? What can we still do? And within reason, so that's sort of what gets me out there. Like I said, I like the destination stuff. I always come up with weird goals. So
such as what?
Last year I wanted to do 20. Well, everything was with 23, and I'm sad to say this was one of the first years I haven't actually accomplished my goal. Injuries have plagued me over the last couple of years, but I wanted to do sub 23 barefoot 5Ks on the track. I did 16. Most of them were under 20 minutes, but whatever. Like 23 just seemed reasonable. 23 minutes, and it was 2023 last year, so
makes sense.
And then I was going to run in a Michael Jordan jersey or something for the 23rd. I never got there. I didn't accomplish that goal. That's fine. I had multiple. Actually, yeah, I had a couple injuries last year. Yeah, so it didn't happen. I have to let go of those things. So part of when you're in the middle of pushing your limits, you have to adjust. You have to have the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm not accomplishing this part of the goal that I had, but here's this goal. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C type things.
Being able to adapt to whatever the reality ends up being.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what have you learned about yourself as you search for what you can do, what you have left in the tank, and pushing through really hard experiences? What have you learned about yourself?
Currently, I'm learning some new lessons because at the tail end of 2021 was when I started dealing with a couple of years of injuries, and previous to that I had not had an injury or any kind of ailment that kept me from missing more than a week of running for 13 years. So I've been dealing with that, but also right now some of what I'm coming back from is readjusting, trying to figure out what am I enjoying about this process. So I'm kind of trying to reinvigorate the process of getting back in shape. Shaun and I are part of I mentioned to you earlier, a 9-person Smoky Mountain relay team, 200 awesome race, 208 mile. We have a 9-person team. So I think we'll all run about 20 to 24 miles. And that's my goal. So I'm relearning about myself right now, that sort of competitive, and you got a bunch of people that are counting on Shaun. I was telling Shaun I was going to be oh man, after the group run tonight, I'm going to be the weak link. He's like, oh, we're just out there to have fun. And I don't accept that. We want to compete. We want to run well. So I've got that in the back of my mind. So I still want to eke every ounce of fitness out of my body that I can. So that's in the back of my mind. But a lot of what I've learned about myself comes from outside of running, and I'm trying to bring it into running. So it's mental, spiritual battles. And I was fortunate, like I said, I didn't really have an injury for 13 years. So now I'm bringing physical stuff into it. So there's that full picture of I am bringing what I'm learning about myself from outside of running and trying to figure out this all fits in, it all sort of meshes, dovetails to make a good picture of just how you battle and adventure through life, whether you have an illness or whether you have kids, because that's hard, or dogs, for Shaun.
Into my twilight of my career. I think that one of the goals that we all kind of inherently carry is how do we extend this euphoric activity into our later years. I don't think any one of us would be very pleasant to talk to if we're stuck in a wheelchair or somehow immobilized for some health reason. And so we do everything we can to push that boundary of what does it take to extend this physical capability that we have and mental learnings that we've had over the years.
And I'm sure it's all one feeds off of the other. Yeah. That, we could probably do a whole nother conversation on integrating spiritual and physical and emotional and all the things as you guys become more and more integrated in the things that you're doing. But I think that's a really cool way to wrap up the conversation, because you guys are doing some really interesting things that, I was nervous coming into this conversation. Like, I don't do anything anywhere near that. And so what I wanted to peek into is a little bit between the ears of how do you do that? And so I think you've done a really good job of tying it all together. And you probably couldn't do it as well as you do if you weren't as integrated in these different parts. So Adam, you got something else you're looking like you're going to say there?
Yeah, I think specifically over the last few years, what I've tried to figure out how to incorporate some of the same strategies that I utilized, or that we've all utilized, for whether it's a competitive endeavor, whether it's a solo adventure through the woods, whether it's a 5K. And Mark, he's not training for a 5K. He's training for a half marathon right now. He's underselling himself. So from the USATF Masters Championship style, like this guy's,
just any half
he's elite. He's elite. Okay. So anyhow, but that's it. Like, from whether it's elite or whether it's like couch to 5K or whatever it is, whether it's an ultra, it's like I've been trying to figure out how to tackle my injury, or I've been figuring how to tackle, like, what if I can't run it? What if I can't do these things anymore? What if I don't have the escape to the mountains that I have anymore? Like, how do I take that same ethos, that same philosophy to the next chapter or the next adventure, which could, and that's kind of where I'm at. So
yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, guys, that was awesome. You have been very generous with your time to do this late into an afternoon or early evening, whatever time it is right now. I do want to ask, are you guys on social media, or how can people find the shop? Anything that you want to do to identify yourself online that people can find you?
I might be on an FBI watch list, but other than that, I'm not on anything else. So you cannot find me. This is Adam Hill Talk. You can't find me on anything. So good luck.
Okay.
Yeah, they say when you take a picture of Adam Hill, it just he disappears.
It just disappears?
It's like that scene from Into the Future when they... Yeah, you can follow our store, Mountain Running Company. We're online. We have a website, mountainrunningcompany.com. Facebook pages. We've got 3 stores, one in Nashville, one in Black Mountain, one in Boone. Mark over here is an employee, and he's on his own social media. But he also has books.
Books, yeah, I want to hear about
purchase.
The books.
So you can get a hold of me on Facebook, on Strava, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Is where I publish that. And then,
professional.
well, we didn't talk about any of that kind of stuff. But so my books are on Amazon, and there'll be 5 more coming out within the next year. I keep saying
Lapping
that
the
every
legs.
year. It just, writing has not been good to me this year. But
And you have just
I have
one?
one book, A Path Through Ohio.
Path Through Ohio.
Yep.
And Mark Looney.
That's correct.
Ryan, are you a ghost, or are you online?
No, I'm online. I'm not as much of a ghost as Adam. I actually put all of my mountain adventuring stuff, whether it's running or cycling or rock climbing, on a different social media page, my personal one. That's Running the Dirty South. I had this idea many years ago to create a website that was called Running the Dirty South, and it was I noticed that it was really to help promote races, and I just got lazy with it. So I was like, this will be my photo dumping place. And so that's what it's turned into.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was epic. I appreciate it. Awesome. All right, we'll do it again sometime. All right, thanks for listening. And I sincerely mean that because I'm extremely grateful that you choose to spend this time with me. I don't take it for granted, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more content like this, be sure to check out material on my website at ridgelinewealthadvisors.com. That's advisors with an ORS. And sign up for my monthly newsletter, The Money Trail Guide, which you can find on the blog page. Until next time, I hope you pursue your own great adventure.